This is a video for graph number 3, which means that we have already done our assignment sheet with just our chart. Okay, so this is my chart here saved to my desktop. I called it Mr. Yena Ganoush Recycling. Then I did my graph number 1, I called it chart number 1, and graph number 2. We're on graph number 3 today. So if you're this far, congratulations, you're almost there, almost done, okay? So we'll start by going to our internet, going to the classroom website, and my computer's been working a little slow, so bear with me today. uscience.wix.com/about. And make sure when this comes up, then we go ahead and click on the environmental link at the top. And I'm just going here so I can get my recycling assignment sheet. You should have this already in hard copy on a regular sheet of paper, which you can pull out. You don't have to download it, but you can do it both ways. And now that it's downloaded, let's open it up and take a look at the assignment for today. Again, guys, there's 4 parts to this. There's the chart, and there's graph 1, graph 2, and graph 3. And when you're done with all of them, make sure your names are written on the back in pencil. Make sure they're still saved to your documents or you're emailing it to yourself. You want to make sure you have them. If for some reason I'd go through to grade them and maybe there's one missing, maybe it fell out of your folder, maybe you just forgot to turn it in, you want to make sure that you have them on backup, all right? So here's our assignments. Chart, we should have done it already. Graph 1, graph 2, done. And now we're on graph 3. The assignment is create a bar graph. So last time we did a bar graph, it's that same type of graph. The time before we did a line graph, which was a little different. So create a bar graph showing the total amount recycled throughout the school year for each date. Alright, so this is a little bit different than the last one. Last one was total amount recycled through the school year for each material. So we looked at how much was being recycled of plastic, how much of paper, how much of aluminum. Now we want to know for each date how much recycling total, how much weight was taken out each day, alright? Okay, so let me go ahead and close out now that we know what the assignment is. I'm going to open up my Excel file called Mr. Yena Ganoush Recycling. And I should have on here my chart. Here it is with my name. But also I should have my graph number 1 and my graph number 2, and they're sitting here pretty nice. All right, so for the first one, we were doing the date versus how much was recycled, right? So we selected all of these dates across the top, and question mark we may or may not include in there, and all of this information, aluminum, paper, and plastic, right? Now this last one, we were doing just aluminum, paper, and plastic. So we highlighted aluminum, paper, and plastic by clicking on the aluminum and dragging down through the paper and plastic cells, and it highlights all 3 of those. Then I come over here, I'm going to push on my keyboard the command key, and I'm going to hold it. Now I'm going to click on this 103.5 and drag it down to the next 2. Okay, I know this looks like it's not selected because it's white, this one that says 103.5, but if you look, there's a blue outline around that cell, and that's just telling us that that's the one that we actually clicked on first. Sometimes that can make a difference depending on what you're trying to do by selecting them. So it is selected though, okay? So we were doing material versus the total for each material recycled. So we selected those 2 in order to make our chart. Now we're going to do the date. I'm going to click on date. I'm going to select all my dates. I would go here, but again, we don't know if we're going to use that day or not. Depends on when the little baby comes. I'm going to select those, and we're comparing that to the total. Okay, so I'm going to push my command key. I'm going to click on total and drag it across these corresponding totals for the amount that was recycled. Now, I didn't click on this cell down below because I know it's total recycled pounds, and that's all one thing, right? But we can all see that these are actually separate cells here. So I can click there, and that's separate from this one, right? So if I click here, there's no information there. So I didn't click and include those because there's no information to include there. Okay, so I just click there, hold the command key, and put my totals highlighted as well. So now I can make a chart or a graph from that information. We said we want to do a bar one, but the bar on here is shown as being horizontal, and we actually want to make a vertical one, so we'll do column, okay? So I'll choose column, and really for this one, I don't care which one you use, okay? You can choose any of these column ones, and as we scroll over, we see that we have 3 different sets of them, right? So we have those and those. My only stipulation is don't do like these funky cone ones. They're just weird looking, I think. Okay, so I think it kind of takes away from what we're trying to show, so don't do them. Some of these, like this one that I just clicked on, you can see in this graph that it doesn't really show the correct information. What's happening is this is in percentages now off to the side. So make sure the one that you click on shows the correct representation of the numbers. These are numbers, not percentages, so we do see a difference between these values. Okay, so this is kind of a 3-dimensional view. You could do other 3-dimensional views like this. You can do this flat front view. I kind of like that, just plain normal look. And you know, that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to take my graph and I'm going to move it. If I click here, right, this selects this whole actual graph part of it, and I can move that around. But to move this whole chart, I want to click off in this blank area of the graph. I'm just going to click and drag it on down and move it all the way to the bottom. And once I get down here, I'm going to drop it down here at this sheet, and now I can do some editing. Alright, so keep in mind when we edit, we want our toolbox handy. And so I'm going to click on it, and it's called the formatting palette at the top. I can change my chart title. What's a good name? Let's see. What's something you guys might think to name it? We're comparing the amount recycled for each recycling day. So I'm going to say Nenana Public School amount recycled 2012, 2013. I think throwing in the year is a nice touch. It tells us exactly when, even though we have the dates down here. I think it helps in the title of it, so we understand just from looking at the title exactly what's going to be happening in our graph, okay? So now the next thing is we'll want to change the horizontal and vertical axis, right? Well, how do we do that? We can see in our formatting palette, all we have to do is click on it, and it's a pretty easy change from there. So for my horizontal axis, when I look down here, these are my dates. And so I think that's all I'm going to call it, date. Vertical y-axis along the side here, this is the amount that's being recycled. And I want to include the units because it's a measurement. So I'm going to put amount recycled. Notice that I capitalized amount and I capitalized recycled. And what unit are we using? Pounds. LBS, or you could spell it out, P-O-U-N-D-S, pounds. Both will work. Again, I'm going to change my font. I don't like the Calibri so much. I'm going to move it to Bank Gothic. It just looks smooth, right? Nice. And I want to kind of stretch this out a little bit. I don't want to make sure that this takes up all the space that it can. I want to make it as big as I possibly can so it just shows everything that's in that graph. Now, one thing I want you guys to do is this. We're going from 0 all the way up to 800 pounds. And if we notice, for each one for each line across here, we go from 0 to 100. So there's 100 pounds being represented there, and it's kind of difficult to see it. So, you know, like for this October the 2nd one, I can see where my value is, and if I had to guess, you know, I'd probably say 60, 65 pounds, but I don't know exactly what it is, right? And I think it would be nice if we could tell that a little bit more easily. So what I'm going to do is I have my formatting palette back up. I'm going to, my computer's working kind of slow. Come on. Okay, I'm going to click here on the side. Now when I click on this part, you can see that it puts this little line around this area. And so it actually selects this information. If I double click it really quickly, like that, then this pops up. Okay, I can go to it's not what I want. It didn't do it right. Let me try it again. Okay, so I click on it. Didn't do it right again. Alright. Make sure you click on a number, I guess. There we go. And we should see on this left side, we get the word scale. When I click on scale, it brings up this information. Now what it's saying here is this. The minimum value on this axis is 0. And we can see that that's true right here, right? The maximum value is 800. And that's right up here. And that's a good value because we're just over 700 pounds. Okay, so that's a good value to stick with. The major unit is 100. What that means is where those lines are going across it and it's labeled, it's going to be by a factor of 100. So it goes from 0 up to 100 and we add 100 to it, so 200, add another 100 and so on, okay? The minor unit is 20. So if we were to select the minor unit, we'll get lines that run through there and it'll be every 20. I want to change that from 100, which is too far in my opinion, to 50. Okay, so I'm going to put in 50 and now I get all these lines going across and they're labeled 50, 100, 150, 200, and that just makes it easier for me to read this graph and know exactly what these values are, okay? I want you guys to make this change. There, so I made that change and I think that's better already. My total over here, this is my legend. Legends, in this case, it has no purpose really, so I'm going to delete it. So I just selected it, I'm going to push the delete button on my keyboard, and it's gone. One thing that I see here is this. For my x-axis, I have dates, and I have October 2nd, October 9th, October 16th, October 23rd, so it's going every 7 days. But we didn't necessarily recycle every 14 days exactly, right? It was pretty close, but if we had a weekend or if we had 1 day off or something, then it changed things a little bit. So it's not perfect. What we want to do is let's select our data, okay? Go ahead and select it. Double click it. And when we look at labels, click on labels. I want to click on show category name, and it's going to put the actual date along with each one of these bars. Okay, so this is going to show us exactly the day that this information was taken on. January 25th is marked now on this bar, but down here at the bottom on our x-axis it's not marked. So that's how I want it now, okay? So that we don't have all these dates going across the bottom, let me now click on this bottom portion. I'm going to double click it. My scale. Whoa, let's not do that. Let's just delete it, right? So I'll just click the delete button and it's gone. Now I can drag my date down a little bit if I want it like that better. All right? So I have the date corresponding with each one of these sets of data. One more thing that I'm going to want to do is this. If I click on this little bar, it's going to highlight all of them, right? Now what I want to do is I'll come over here to my chart options. I'll click on colors, weights, and fills. The weight of something doesn't necessarily mean how much it physically weighs, but it can also mean the thickness of it. And so I'm going to increase the weight of these lines because they feel too skinny to me. So the weight, let me try changing this first. Why isn't that changing? Okay, apparently you have to click on transparency or something to allow it to change the weight of it. So that's what I'm going to do. And now I'll click it up. You can make it pretty high. I don't know how high, but I'm just going to leave it at, let's do 12, okay? There, now I can see that this is a decent thickness, so I can see this much more easily. And I think I'll leave that there. I can see that I have these lines running across. Again, these are my major axis. I think I'll put in a major axis running vertically. So I did that by clicking this major, and I can see these vertical lines. And I'll put in my minors going both ways, okay? You don't have to do that for this chart. I would do it for the others before it, but for this one, you don't really have to. I just don't think it's needed for this one. What other changes could we make to it? Maybe colors? We could easily change some of the colors here. There's a lot of different options we can do. And you guys did all that stuff before, just kind of changing around exactly what it's going to look like. I think it's a document theme here. And you can choose different colors to go along with your graph. Make them whatever colors you want. Change them to a yellow color. Okay, that's your call. I'll let you guys decide how you do that. Alright, now that I'm at this point, I want to check over my graph and make sure it's good. Close out of my formatting palette because it's taking up space. Nenana Public School Amount Recycled 2012-2013. That's my title. I've got my date. I've got my units running along the side here, which is pounds. I changed this so that it's every 50 for the major axes. And I removed my dates and stuck them right on the bars, okay? So I have the actual date that we did the recycling. And that's great. That's how I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to File and Save. Now I have this saved. And I also want to take this graph and save it as a picture like we've done in the past one. So I'm going to push the Control button on my keyboard. It's right underneath the Shift on the left side. Push Control and hold it down. I'm going to click on my clicker. And it gives me this option, Save as Picture. You can take your fingers off of the keyboard now. I'm not touching anything. Now I'm going to touch it. I can move it around, right? And I'll click Save as Picture. I'm going to save this to my desktop. Graph number 3. I don't want it to be a PNG. Make it a JPEG. Alright? Make sure that when you save it, you email it to yourself or you put it in your documents folder as you guys have been doing all along. Whatever it is that you've been doing to save these and make sure that they're there, do that. Okay? Again, you don't want to lose these. You don't want to have to redo them again. It's just a frustrating process if that happens. Okay? So make sure it's saved. Give yourself plenty of time at the end of class to do this. At that point, I'm going to print this off, make sure my chart, my graph 1, graph 2, and graph 3 have all been printed off, and make sure my name is on them. I would say for these graphs, write your name on the back in pencil, and you're good to go. All right? Good luck. If you have any questions, ask the people next to you. Don't bug them if they don't want to help you, but ask someone who seems like they know what's going on, okay? Good luck, guys.